contrast with Oprah's image as a supporter of women's empowerment and other social issues. Some even mentioned how her friendship with Harvey is an obvious double standard and a big flaw in her beliefs and principles. But this is not the end yet, because after being close with a person who's dubbed as a predator, Oprah also invited another notorious person to her program. Yes, you heard that right. Oprah invited John of God on her show, and viewers were shocked and disgusted all at the same time. If this is the first time you've heard his name, John is Oprah's faith healer, and he was charged with multiple...
Can you believe that shit? Oprah bald-headed ass Winfrey. Bald head.
Multiple charges involving harassment and, as a result, sentenced to 99 years in prison. Can you imagine a person like Oprah, who advocates against these offenses, actually having a faith healer who was in prison for the very same charges? Coincidence? Well, there is a high chance it's not. Fans were also baffled because of this, and they can't seem to understand how this happened. One fan wrote, "Finally, slowly, we're seeing justice against the elite heroes," while another said, "Beware of most folks that Oprah promotes." It's also mind-boggling how Oprah literally opened the doors for a person like John of God to have access to his victims, since she was the one who catapulted him into the limelight.
Another individual, to me, that's down with the bullshit too, is Steve Harvey. He's another one. Now I'm saying Oprah Winfrey, Steve Harvey, and there's quite a few others I'm not going to mention right now, but they're down with the bullshit. And you know what I'm saying? Now, another person that is involved that called out Oprah Winfrey was Nikki. You know what I'm saying?
By featuring him in her show. Through this action, Oprah actually gave John of God an audience and credibility when he was actually the total opposite. Oprah did try to salvage her reputation by showing support and empathy to the women who became victims of John of God. But sadly, the damage was already done, and it's almost impossible to believe her words when she was the first one to endorse a predator in the guise of a faith healer. And to add to this, Oprah is set to make more terrible decisions that will become the talk of the town. One of them was when she set up a leadership academy in South Africa, and since then, this academy has been bombarded.
Why did she go to South Africa? Same as we seen with the bubblegum factory over there. You know what I'm talking about when it comes to COVID-19. You know what I'm saying? They set up a whole shit factory over there to make the shit. South Africa, what the fuck is wrong with you now? After all that freedom fighting, you still letting these beasts control your land. And Nelson Mandela should be knocked upside his head to get his scruples straight, because he also spent many years in prison, bad conditions, maybe not. You know what I'm saying? We don't know what really took place in there. You know what I'm saying? And so on, to come out and act as if the apartheid is over and you're going to do that. You didn't liberate your people. What you did was give them a watered down so-called liberation bullshit, but kept the crackers still involved in the country who was oppressing your people and invade the land due to the impression that they were pushing to allow them to be able to come into the land in the first place. And rather than put the whole check and take full control of South Africa, your governmental wise, you talking about you need them to help you do this and help you that. We don't need them to do a goddamn thing except if you're gonna stay there, you're gonna be under black rule and kick the goddamn funky ass bullshit bubblegum factory you got over there talking about some COVID-19 out of there, and definitely get Oprah Winfrey crooked knucklehead behind out of the country, away from the fucking children. They are predators. That go for Creep Joe Biden as well.
With controversy, one after the other. In fact, the South African government was the first to express its displeasure about the project and criticize the exorbitant price the school is requiring these students to pay.
Woo,
however, even the South African authorities were not able to stop Oprah. Instead, she charged them.
She over there charging them. She over there charging billions of dollars, and she calls that billionaire school, and she a billionaire. Instead of helping her people out, her black, stupid, like I said, when Oprah Winfrey show first came on, I never liked it, her. Period. I had no love for her show, and I really didn't care about it too much. You know what I'm saying? But other people watched it, and they would turn to, and I guess I would have to sit there and watch this fucking retarded shit. You know, many of these talk show hosts think that they run our mentality, and we have to stop letting them do that. That goes with a view, Geraldo Rivera. You know what I'm saying? Talking about Geraldo Rivera. You know what I'm saying? You had the Donahue show. You had many different series of shows that were coming on. You know what I'm saying? You even had her show, and there was another lady, Jenny Jones, I think it was, and you know it was many different shows that talk whole people, you know what I'm saying? And now they feel that they have our minds so talk hosts, you know, depending on them to save the full motherfucking world, that you believe that you're garbage. Let me get it straight. Very few of those talk shows showed me, even the Donahue show, you garbage. You trash. Donahue kind of, you know, call himself doing, but the real people who had the real evidence, he ain't let up there. He'd bring on celebrities, and you had what's the name in the show? What's the name? One show they had where they had that black guy up there talking about Jesus is black. You know what I'm saying? And you had Dr. Simmons in the crowd, and you ain't even bring Dr. Simmons up on stage. You garbage, nigga. So I don't give a flying fuck what you say. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them talk whole shows and stuff that they had our minds so boggled up and believing that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? That led all the way to cell phones. Now let's move on.
And even flaunted the high-end facilities, salons, and even over-the-top gyms, as if she hadn't put up the academy in a country that's challenged by poverty. As a result, rumors about the true reason why she built the school in the first place started spreading like wildfire. At most, people alleged that the school was nothing but a front for something fishy and shady. While there's no concrete evidence that will prove this, one shocking incident involving a person who worked in the academy might be the biggest proof everyone's waiting for. This is an incident involving a woman named Virginia who worked for Oprah in the dormitories of the academy. It was revealed that this employee engaged in highly illicit conduct with multiple students in the academy, which triggered raised eyebrows and criticism. And if this is true, Oprah literally put these young, defenseless girls under the supervision of someone who would take advantage of them. Despite how hard the host tried to clear her name, another incident in the academy is set to damage her reputation even more. It was reported that incidents of violence and intimidation among the students happen on a daily basis. Because of this, fans believe that the problem is deeply engraved in the academy's foundation. And just like what Oprah is doing, people on the top of the ladder are trying their hardest to stop the truth from coming out. They do this by making sure movies like Sound of Freedom never get the attention they deserve.
Imagine that. Imagine it. You see what I'm saying to you? This is the bullshit that seems to go on. You know what I'm saying? Even my man podcast, he was speaking on Oprah, how she was talking, and then sit up there making a statement that when a pedophilia touch you and rabies, that it feels good to you. Oprah Winfrey's a sick individual. This is what money does to people. And Lord knows what she did to get that money. You know what I'm saying? Lord knows what she did to get that money and what she has to pay back and sign the Luciferian blood-sucking contracts and shit. That's why she's always, even was over there to the wedding in the Candace Owens wedding over there, knowing full well the history of the you know, the United Kingdom and shit, and the Candace Owens' husband and their family and what they did to black people, and she over there glorifying them. She's a balls-licking sellout son of a gun. And I saw that in the very beginning of her show when she had her show, that she was a balls-licker son of a gun. You know what I'm saying? And the money and the fame and all that shit done went to her fucking head to where she believed that she could Luciferian Baphomet the whole fucking world along with every other rich person and calling herself a philanthropist along with Bill Gates. This was a part of the club. Bill Gates, Soros, a whole bunch of philanthropists who comes together and think of what's good for the world, like Soros when he destabilized the United States and different countries and different things, and up in there paying them people off to carry on the democratic Luciferian Baphomet New World Order fucking chaos in the streets and bringing on the motherfucking migrants from over there, you know what I'm saying, when the presidents and them is in bed with the cartels and so on and so on and so on. You know what I'm saying? But we see even the shock and outrage, you know what I'm saying, that the Biden officials, you know, humiliated as Matt Gaetz exposes drag story hour in the military. Now that is something that we have to look at, and we still have to look at the even fact of this one right here, because this makes a lot of sense when, Ron Paul leaves the entire Congress speechless during epic speech. You know what I'm saying? Now how can Ron Paul give a speech? How can Ron Paul give a speech that is
medical bills, rent, gas,
how can
groceries, electric?
How can
It
Ron
never
Paul
ends, right?
give a speech that, would lead the whole entire Congress in shock is a very good question. You know what I'm saying? Because that should not have been an issue based on that at all. You know what I'm saying? It should not have come to that point that Ron Paul would be able to shame them like that.
In the last year, they decided that the result to the pandemic would be to close everything down, destroy the economy, and then give everyone free money. And to a large extent, both parties actually did this last year. Now, this year, the decision has been made by Republicans to say, whoo, this is so much, we got to stop. We got to get people back to work and let the economy recover. So it's primarily been Democrats this year. But both parties have a certain responsibility to this, at least some members of both parties. But as the inflation occurs, and effect is being transmitted to the economy, you find that those who suffer are those who cannot raise their income, those who have fixed income or low income. One of the things you see here is that if we have 5% inflation, what does that mean? You say, well, I don't know, it means I lose my purchasing power by 5% next year. But what if it happens year in, year out for a decade, and you've lost 50% of your purchasing power? It means to make up for that you really have to have a 50% increase in your wages. So will wages keep up with inflation? The dirty little secret is that in some ways wages will rise, but maybe they rise an equivalent amount or a little bit less, and you say a decade later, I'm not any better off. And there become people mired and more dependent on government as government gets larger and larger, and they think they're getting free stuff, but it's not really free. The allure of something for nothing. This is the allure of socialism. This is a false allure. It's something that you're going to be able to get something and you're not going to have to pay for it. So we've accumulated $30 trillion in debt. Interest payments have been fairly low over the past decade or so. Interest payments are about, 1, 2, 2.5%. But now interest rates are rising. Even at the low interest rates, our interest rate that we pay each year has grown to about $300 billion a year. So $300 billion a year, and people say, well, there's a debt ceiling. If the debt ceiling doesn't come up, we'll default, and Wall Street will become hysterical, and there'll be a collapse of the stock market. Well, there doesn't need to be. Nobody really is for spreading discalm or spreading, chaos among the marketplace. We all want the marketplace to be calm. How could we calm the marketplace? What we would say to the marketplace is, we'll pay our bills. We're not going to default on our currency. And the way you can pay for your bills is pay for it with income. We bring in $3.8 trillion a year in tax revenue. The interest payment is $300 billion. It's less than we bring in 1 month. So the annual payment on interest is less than what we bring in tax revenue in 1 month. Why can't we pay the interest? Why would we ever not pay the interest on our debt? Why? Because we're overdrawn and because all the rest of the spending is crowded out by the interest. We've got plenty of money to pay for the interest. We just don't have enough left to pay for the cocaine studies with Japanese quail. That's about $1 million. You say, it's only $1 million. Well, they studied Japanese quail to see whether or not Japanese quail on cocaine, to see if they're more sexually promiscuous. How did we get to a $30 trillion debt? Because there's studies like that littered throughout the budget. In fact, the group that does these studies, the National Science Foundation, we just increased their budget by 2/3. Mostly Democrats, but once again, many of the big government Republicans voted for this too. So we've exploded the National Science Foundation. Now, was there any warning that the National Science Foundation was one of the most wasteful parts of our government? Well, yeah, since 1972, there was a congressman or a senator at the time named William Proxmire. He was a conservative or maverick Democrat from the Midwest, and he started an award. He called it the Golden Fleece Award. And the first award he gave was for a study from the National Science Foundation. It was over a study that was $50,000. That was when $50,000 was a lot of money. And the study was to see what makes people happy. Really? And people were aghast that we were spending $50,000 on it. And he complained. He gave them a booby prize, an award, the Golden Fleece Award. And lo and behold, we're still doing it. This same organization last year did $1.5 million study that if you take a selfie of yourself while smiling and then look at the selfie later on, does it make you happy? That cost $1.5 million. Why do people like each other? Why do people fall in love? These aren't studies for taxpayer dollars, but these are small ticket items. They say, you could never balance the budget on that. Well, what about $70 million spent on a hotel in Kabul that the contractor ran off with the money and it was never built? What about a $48 million gas station? No, strike that, natural gas station in a remote area of Afghanistan. Well, very few, if anybody in the United States has a car that runs on natural gas. Why was the U.S. government building a natural gas station in Afghanistan? Because we've gone woke on the green climate. We are for the green climate. We got to combat climate change and reduce the carbon footprint of Afghanistan. Really? I thought the military was supposed to kill the enemies, defend the country. But we're reducing the carbon footprint in Afghanistan. Somebody put up, I think it was Rod Dreyer put up this the other day. It was a little video clip, and it was it's tragic, but somewhat hilarious in its tragicness. He said, this is when we lost the Afghan war. And it had a picture of a urinal. I think it was Marcel Duchamp was some Dadaist artist back in like 1917, and I guess he thought it would be really hilarious to put a male urinal in a museum and call it art. And I don't know if it was really art or if it was a joke, but the thing is we're having these Afghan men and women in robes and veils and everything studying Dadaist art, a male urinal, and asking them what they thought of this. And you could see a couple of the women just going and just sort of shaking their head with utter incomprehension. But when we're spending money sending PhDs over to Afghanistan to teach Dadaist art about that a male urinal is somehow art, I think that's why some of them think that we're actually the culture that's in decay, not them. But the thing is we are spending money right and left. The right spends it on military adventure. The left spends it on welfare. And the compromise that always happens around here is right comes together with left. And they all agree to, well, we might as well just spend it on both. So everything goes up. The military budget went up. We already spend more than all of the countries, more than 10 countries combined is our military budget. $750 some odd billion. Republicans and Democrats just raised it $25 billion more. In the midst of ending a war, where's the peace dividend? What happened? We ended a war. I thought we'd have a little more money left over. So today I tried to take $6 billion.
A little money left over. They say in the roaring 20s. This ain't the roaring 20s where you brought it home to the people, and the people benefited from many of this stuff. Ron Paul should understand that part. This ain't the roaring 20s. You know what I'm saying? They took that away years ago to where, you know what I'm saying, you would enjoy the spoils of war. You know what I'm saying? Now the elites want all the spoils of war for themselves. You know what I'm saying? They want to go in and steal stuff out of people's land, broke open their boats and steal the black people stuff and all kinds of crazy crap going on there. So, you know what I'm saying? And people need to start to realize that this is what's going on based on the whole ideology. You have a very elitist shit in our government that needs to be cleansed. It needs to be cleansed. It needs to be cleansed out of our land.
That's supposed to go to the Afghan Reconstruction Fund, to the old Afghan government. There is no Afghan government. They've been overrun by the Taliban. I want to have, and I would love for Americans that are watching this, call me today at my office and tell me why the Taliban should get money. But I ask that we take that money away, put it back in the Treasury, spend some of it on the Iron Dome for Israel, and it was objected to by the Democrats because, by golly, they'll spend money, but they don't want to offset it with any spending cuts. Well, really? We should have $0 being sent to any government in Afghanistan. I asked Secretary Blinken about this, and his response was, well, I can't guarantee it, and if they If they are meeting expectations and they're acting and behaving properly, they might get this money. Really, I don't see a scenario or a world under which U.S. taxpayer dollars would be going to the Taliban. It makes utterly no sense at all. But we have spending that is literally out of control. The only time I've ever heard a Democrat, most of the time they're honest, they don't care about the debt, but the only time I've ever heard them say about the debt is, it happens because you cut taxes. Well, it's verifiably false. You can go back to the Reagan tax cuts when the rates went from 70 to 50 and then from 50 to 28. You know what happened? The government got more revenue. Because when you tax people less, when you let them keep more of their own money, guess what? Their incentives to produce go up. And the economy grows by leaps and bounds. So when Reagan cut taxes dramatically, the economy responded and grew tremendously. When we cut taxes in 2017, same thing. Revenue didn't go down, revenue went up. So how did the deficit get worse? Why did the deficit get worse? Was it because we cut taxes in 2017? No, it was because we piled on the money. We just are spending money like there's no tomorrow. So before we get to the extraordinary times we live in now, where everything's about...
Yeah, especially spending all that money in Ukraine, sending another $8.9 billion to Ukraine and all kinds of money going flying out the door. The debt ceiling wide the fuck open. You know what I'm saying? And you have no respect for the American people's pocket other than to drain it, dry it out, and squeeze every dollar you can, like he just said. You know what I'm saying? If you cut taxes and you put more money into people's pocket, which I'm all for, you know what I'm saying? It ain't got to be me. Make sure all the people in there that make the world go round get this kind of money coming on in. And they can grow off that money from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? The people need more money in their pockets, not over there in Ukraine and other places. You said $8.9 trillion over there. What happened to the poor people and the people living here in America? You know what I'm saying? We don't know those people over there. You saying there's a war going on between the two, Russia and Ukraine, over the fact that you chumped up, you and Joe Biden them did some old creepy shit over there with Zelensky, creepy ass. You know what I'm saying? And now all of a sudden they deserve all our money, all our taxpayers' money, but we don't deserve none. The ones who've been out here homeless in the streets, the ones who's been out there discriminated against, the ones who've been out there as white people still can't see the riches of the land in which you preach into their head that they're superior and they're supposed to get and they're supposed to do this and this and that, but you don't fit in the category with them, I guess. And they don't see the money. And many other poor whites who just trying to survive and live a fruitful life don't see the money. I mean, the American people completely obliviated to the money, but they always put it on TV saying how much you send to these people and how much you send here and how much you send there. You know what I'm saying? There's always that good old story, that we see. You know what I'm saying? And this is a part of this whole same bullshit that they talking about. You know what I'm saying? So ain't nobody, let's go on.
COVID, we're just going to spend money like there is no tomorrow. Before we got to that, we were borrowing $1 trillion a year. So the main segments of government, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, other welfare, and military. That probably comprises 3/4 or more of government. If you look at that on an annual basis, before you get to the extraordinary binge of the last 2 years, we were already $1 trillion short every year. $1 trillion short. So last year we added a couple trillion more, and our deficit for the year, for 1 year, was $3 trillion. We've never, ever borrowed that much. There are going to be ramifications. You're already seeing some of the ramifications. You're seeing the prices in the grocery store go up. You're seeing the prices in the pump go up. You're seeing sometimes wages go up, but you're also seeing prices rising faster than wages, which often happens in an inflationary cycle.
Yeah, that they create.
Some people have trouble comprehending how these numbers, what's a billion, what's a trillion. Reagan had an analogy he did, and he said that if you want to know how big a billion is, take $1,000 bills and put them in your hand. When you have them about 4 inches high, you've got $1 million. But if you want to know how much or how tall a stack of $1,000 would be if you had $1 trillion, it'd be 60 miles high, over 60 miles high. That's what kind of money we're talking about. That was to get to $1 trillion. So we have $1 trillion institutional debt that's added every year. But now we're talking about a time where they're talking about adding in one bill, $3.5 trillion. The bill that they have before us has $1 billion in spending for every page. Every page of the bill has an extra $1 billion in spending. It's extraordinary. We've never ever seen anything like this. What happens when a country destroys its currency? We have examples in history. In Germany in 1923, the money was starting to lose its value in about September. And
just before the war,
it cost 100 marks, where before it cost 1 mark. 2 weeks later, it was 1,000 marks. But then 2 weeks later, it was 10,000 marks. And then it was 1 million, and then it was several million. This happened in a 2-month period of time. People say, oh, when it comes, when the currency unravels, it'll be gradual. In Germany, it happened in a 2-month period. In Venezuela, the currency is completely worthless. Same as Germany. It's almost better to burn your currency for fuel or warmth than it is to spend it. This is what happens when you have runaway spending and out-of-control deficits. Venezuela is one of the richest countries in South America. They have more oil underground than Saudi Arabia. But frankly, socialism doesn't work. Socialism is this borrow and spend. It is this alarming tendency to want to offer everybody everything and say it's going to be free. Many of these things backfire. For the last year, we've been saying, well, oh gosh, we feel sorry for workers, so we're going to pay them while they're unemployed. But guess what? If you pay them more than the market wage, more of them will choose unemployment, and more of them will choose unemployment, and more of them will stay unemployed for a longer period of time. We found this out in the 2008 recession. During the 2008 recession, we extended unemployment. It's normally 26 weeks, paid for by a tax, and it largely works within the confines of a state-run program. We extended it to 99 weeks, almost 2 years. But you know what the studies found? And this is part of the syndrome we have around here. It's sort of the big heart, small brain syndrome. I think many of these people want to help people. They just don't understand, but what they're doing is actually hurting the same people they're trying to help. So if you extend unemployment to 99 weeks, and then all of a sudden the guy at 99 weeks or a woman says, I need to get a job, and they go to the employer and they say, I've been out of work for 99 weeks, I've been on unemployment. And the other person applying for the job says, well, I've been out of work 10 weeks, and I'm looking for a job. Who do you think the employer hires? Every time it's a person out of work 10 weeks. The person out of 99 weeks, they're like, might be something wrong here. We might have gotten to the point where we've lost work ethic. So what have you done to that person that you tried to help? You've actually kept them out of the workplace so long that they become unemployable. After they become unemployable, what do they become? The permanently unemployable, the non-working part. You wonder who this is? 62% of the country is in the working force, 38% is not. These are people permanently out of the workforce. These aren't people who can't work. These are just people for one reason or another are no longer in the workforce. Now, some of them can be people who can't work, and we have sympathy for that. But many of them are people who just stayed out of work too long or took the wrong incentives or became addicted to drugs or alcohol because they weren't working. So there are things we can do in our country, but if we're not careful, it's going to slip away from us. I don't want our country to be Venezuela. I don't want our country to destroy its currency. But what we're offering is a more difficult sell, because the other side is going to give you free college and free daycare and free cars and free cell phones. What we are offering is opportunity. What we're offering is the freedom to try to strive.
That's
we're
right.
offering equality before the law, not equality of outcome after you've done your work, after you've tried to participate.
Right. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? I like that. Now we know for well. So we have, for instance, today we had to do a little recapping. Nothing wrong with that, looking over the different stuff that is out there and the different people who are speaking up against many things. Well, I'm sure that a lot of people are doing the same thing, but on my newscast, this is what I put today. You know what I'm saying? So we could look, and maybe you could go over and look at many things and start to dig deep as you possibly can. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, take an hour, maybe 15, 20 minutes, who knows, you know what I'm saying? But constantly be looking at things that makes a lot of sense when it comes to exposing these beasts as to what they're doing in our country, spending up all the money, and we're getting none of it. All we're getting is a little bullshit ass wages, and like Ron Paul said, it's rising faster than your wages, the inflation and all types of different things, because they create these things. This is what you don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, and when he said Republicans on both sides, he's talking about the sellout motherfuckers that cross over party lines, or even in the Republican Party for years, and they Luciferian bullshit. They're taking it from black people and then turning it into a whole white entity, and probably kicking on a lot of black people too. You know what I'm saying? But you have black people there. But we see them, they in the pockets of the demon Democrats. So it's going to make the Republicans look bad anyway, because you could even go back to the 1700s, whenever they were doing their little massacres and shit. It was a lot of them were Republicans as well. You know what I'm saying? And the demon Democrats leading the way. You know what I'm saying? The two parties, and they always coincide, but because the demon Democrats and the different group always wanted to bribe off the other side, and if you ain't this, they don't like you, then they kick your ass out, and then they put another guy in your place in the Republican Party who gonna do what the demon Democrats tell them to do, and the scheme gonna go back and forth, and then the Republican gonna be over here, and he gonna do this shit, and he gonna want the demon Democrats over here to go along with that shit, and it's a back and forth thing while they play us in the middle like a fiddle. So this is Point Black saying, stay right, stay tight. You got to get your mind right, because like the General Sorrow Sultan said, the General Sorrow Sultan said, he said, we need to always check the checker, because if you don't check the checker, you know what I'm saying, and relying on the checker to do the checking only, your pocket's damn sure gonna come up short. And this is what we have been doing for far too long. So this is Point Black saying, no man precedes his mother. And that's a fact. And we're not talking about the S-O-N, we're talking about the S-U-N as God. You know what I'm saying? Rah! You know what I'm saying? The black woman is God. Farewell. One, we will meet again.